Anybody home?
I'm downstairs.
Okay, I'm coming down. Sid, late as usual. Sorry, man. I left my books at home and I had to go get them. Aren't you watching that show Wilson Assigned on TV?
Seen one guy trekking across Alaska, you seen them all.
Looks like another commercial.
When winter storms strike urban areas, many things may happen. Schools close, traffic snarls, businesses are hurt, and people are killed. But the number of people killed or injured by winter storms would be considerably reduced if some simple rules were followed. Don't drive if you can help it. If you must, drive slowly, defensively, and be sure your car is winterized. Walk carefully and don't take unnecessary chances. Footing can be treacherous and drivers can easily lose control of their cars. Don't overexert yourself, and you can help it. Stay indoors during cold snaps and storms unless you're in top physical condition. Heart attacks are a common cause of death during winter storms. Winter storms come in many forms: ice, sleet, heavy snow, and extremely low temperatures. So remember, pay attention to official bulletins. Now, back to part 3 of Jack London's classic story, To Build a Fire.
The man was a newcomer to the land, a Chichaco, one of many, dragged from every corner of the world by the news of the Klondike strike. This was his first winter. The trouble with him was that he was without imagination. He was quick and alert in the things of life, but only in the things, not in the significances. The tremendous cold made no impression on the man. 50 degrees below zero meant 80-odd degrees of frost. Such a fact impressed him as being cold and uncomfortable. And that was all. It did not lead him to meditate upon his frailty as a creature of temperature, and upon man's frailty in general, able only to live within certain narrow limits of heat and cold. 50 degrees below zero stood for a bite of frost that hurt, and that must be guarded against by the use of ear flaps, mittens, thick socks, and warm moccasins. 50 degrees below zero. He remembered the advice of the old-timer on Sulphur Creek. The old-timer had been very serious in laying down the law that no man must travel alone in the Klondike after 50 below. Well, here he was. He'd had the accident. He was alone. And he had saved himself. All a man has to do is to keep his head, and he's all right. Any man who's a man could travel alone. But he had not thought his fingers could go lifeless so short a time. The wires were pretty well down between him and his finger ends.
another commercial. Be quiet, Sid.
Winter in the country can be beautiful. But a winter storm can produce double problems for people in rural areas. They have to take care of themselves, and in some cases, their livestock. But in both cases, thoughtful preparation is essential. Maintain extra supplies of food, medicine, and heating fuel. If a severe storm hits your area, supply carriers may not be able to get through. If you're trapped in a car, don't panic. Stay in the vehicle where you can keep warm and are more likely to be found. Move livestock into shelter areas, and if a storm lasts over 48 hours, emergency feed methods will be needed. In rural areas, make sure you are prepared for winter storms. Now the conclusion of To Build a Fire.
Then the thought came to him that the frozen portions of his body must be extending. He tried to keep this thought down, to think of something else. But the thought asserted itself and persisted until it produced a vision of his body totally frozen. This was too much. He made another wild run along the trail.
Leave me alone, you bastard. Oh. Leave me alone, Cal.
He'd been making a fool of himself, running around like a chicken with its head cut off. He was bound to freeze anyway, and he might as well take it decently. Good idea, he thought, to sleep off to death. It was like taking an anesthetic.
You was right, old-timer. You was right.
Never in the dog's experience had it known a man to sit like that in the snow and make no fire. But the man remained silent. As the twilight drew on, the dog's eager yearning for the fire mastered it. It caught the scent of death and backed away. The far northwest of Canada, the Klondike. Here in 1896, George Washington Carmack struck gold. As news reached the outside world, a stampede followed. 1 million made plans to join the rush for gold. 100,000 set out. Only 40,000 made it. Some found a fortune. Others turned back empty-handed. But without exception, they were completely unprepared for the severity of the winter in the Klondike.
Sid, wake up. Stop daydreaming. Get up.
Wow, I shouldn't have done it. I should have listened. The old man at Sulphur Creek was right.
The trouble with him was that he was without imagination. He was quick and alert in the things of life, but only in the things, not in the significances.